Welcome to the Remodeler Success Podcast, a show created to inspire kitchen and bath industry professionals to achieve optimal success in their remodeling business. Your host, Dennis Oz, is the author of the book, Remodel Your Digital Marketing, an integrated online marketing guide for kitchen and bath remodelers. He's also the founder of RTA Marketing, a pioneer digital marketing agency for the remodeling industry. On each episode, Dennis will sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they learned, and how to find success in remodeling.
Welcome to the Remodeler Success Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the challenges, triumphs, and strategies of professionals who are really shaping the future of the remodeling industry. You could be a seasoned remodeler for many years looking for insights on business growth, or just someone who's just starting in the field. We are here to bring you the actionable, inspiring stories and the latest industry trends. So I have a really exciting guest joining us today. I don't know how to even describe these decades in the custom cabinetry industry. He built a name for himself by seamlessly combining the functionality with beautiful design and working closely with remodelers to deliver exceptional results on residential and commercial projects. I'm so thrilled to share his journey with us today and also his expertise with you. So without further ado, let's welcome the president and the owner of Moran's Custom Cabinetry, Harold Morans. Harold, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dennis.
Well,
nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Could you please introduce yourself a little bit, all these years in the industry?
Sure. Yeah, I started doing custom cabinetry 44 years ago. It's hard to believe. We started our business in Montreal, Canada, where I grew up and lived. And we started as a one-man shop, slowly built up to 4 to 6 men. And in Montreal, we did strictly residential cabinetry, a few commercial jobs for lawyers' offices and dentists' offices, but mostly custom kitchens, wall units, bedrooms, Murphy beds, that type of work. Our market in Montreal was mostly the Orthodox Jewish community, which is not as big as New York City, but it's a quite established community. And one person tells another. You know, it's like any other cultural group. People like to deal with people they know, speak their language, and I slowly built up the reputation for over 24 years. By the time I left Montreal, there were families that was doing 3rd and 4th generation work already for them. Again, I was known for attention to detail, politeness. My workers would clean up, they would work properly, they would show up on time. Here in Florida, the concept of mañana is very popular. People are always late, not showing up on time. I still have my northern attitude. And after 24 years, the cold weather was getting to be a little hard for my wife. So we decided to make the move to Florida and reopen up. I sold my business in Montreal to an American, actually, that wanted to move to Montreal. His wife was a Canadian, and he bought my business. I spent 3 months training him, and then handed him the keys, the alarm system, the computer codes, and moved. Sold my house, sold my country house, bought a condo down here, and we've been here for the past 20 years.
It's an amazing story. I was looking at the company profile and the things that you also contributed to the industry over almost 40 years. Folks, to let you know, I just celebrated my 40th birthday. So it's been a long time.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, thanks so much.
I'll be 74 in a couple of days.
Okay, yeah. Let me ask you then, what's the secret sauce of having these years and years in the industry and bringing great results to your clients and keeping the business alive for this long time? What's the secret?
I think that any business owner has to be responsive to his clients, has to, like in any other communication, listening is the most important thing. I have met clients who, after they've been 10 minutes in my showroom, said, I already know you're my guy. Because when I went to other people, I would show them the drawings and they would just say, yeah, we can do that. You know, they'd say, what about this? Yeah, we can do that. But they never discussed or listened to me They just had their preconceived notions. And I am very, very responsive to my clients. So even if I'm working with a designer, I try to be careful. But if she's coming up with an idea and I know it's not going to work, I'm not afraid to say something. I've got those years of experience, and they may be able to design the whole house, but I am the expert in the kitchen area. So I'm not afraid to say something. I am very, very transparent. My price is my price. I don't play around with pricing. It's quality work, and I charge for it. And I don't believe in doing all kinds of negotiations for price because I know what it costs me to make my cabinets. Um, but again, I think the most important thing is open communication, innovative design. I've gone to all the shows over the years and seen what the latest products are. I visit showrooms. Here in Florida, there's actually a couple of very, very popular consignment stores that take consignment furniture. They're huge places and I love just going there sometimes on a Sunday and walking through and getting inspiration. It's older furniture, but they've put it together in such unique ways. And it gives me a good focus and perspective on what people are looking for. And I think that's very important. That's what my clients notice most. Um, I also always try to give the customer more than what they paid for. There's always something extra in their kitchen that they later on said, "Oh, I didn't know you were giving me that." And I learned that uh, many years ago from my dad at a deli. And when he would bring him and his two brothers own a business, it's still running after 85 years. They're gone already, but my other members of the family are running it. And when he would bring a smoking sandwich to the table, it was not only with the traditional pickle and coleslaw, but if he knew the customer, he'd have a little bit of caviar, he'd have a little bit of this, try some of this new product. And people always appreciated that extra personal attention. And I learned that from him. And I try to do the same thing with my clients.
This is a big generosity by saying that you're always trying to give more, that clients, when they ask something, that you're always trying to give more. This is so generous of you. I will also take the conversation to an interesting subject that you also mentioned when you are talking about your background. You said you moved from one country to another. Even right now, our listeners, sometimes they're thinking about changing the state or changing their location. This is a big question mark for them. And I just wanted to dive about that actual particular subject. How did you feel first you just changed? Did you really completely change your business, or is just the marketing change? How did you handle that process?
Well, I honestly didn't know what was going to change. It's just that we were open to change, and life is change. I mean, your age at 74, you go through changes in life. Your body's not the same as it was. Your mind's not the same as it was. You have to learn to adapt. So when we moved here, I was surprised in many ways. I figured it's one English-speaking country to another English-speaking country. Coming from Canada, which was a Commonwealth country, my English is so far superior to most people I know here in Florida. Um, you know, uh, the most difficult part was the psychological difference. Canada is a very gentle country. It's not a confrontational country, especially here in the past couple of decades. America has really become a very, very confrontational country. And learning to deal with a different culture where I thought it really was going to be the same was difficult. I still have difficulty with it after 20 years. In Montreal, you can drive through downtown and very rarely see a person sleeping on a park bench. And here, from my shop in Fort Lauderdale, from the ocean to my shop 6 miles away, there's 200 beggars on the road. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to the psychological aspect of it. Now, business-wise, I had the money because I sold my home. I had a home in the country. I sold that. So I sold my shop. So I had the finances to reopen down here. I did take a hit on the dollar. The Canadian dollar was 63 cents. So $200,000 disappeared from one bank to another. But I had the funds, and I was able to buy my condo outright. I was able to buy all my machinery. The tricky part at the beginning was finding clients because, again, in Montreal, I never needed the internet. Uh, Everybody knew everybody else. There was a weekly circular that used to be distributed by a couple of people every Friday before the Sabbath. It would go out in the mail, and you knew all the plumbers, you knew all the electricians, and I had a $35 ad in this simple paper: a kitchen, a wall unit, a bathroom vanity, and that was all I needed. I didn't have a website because I didn't work outside a 5 mile radius. When I moved here, it was a shocker. But I did meet with a very intelligent person here who actually called himself the kitchen coach. He worked for Allied Kitchens, has been established here in Florida as long as I've been in business. And it was well worth the money I paid him. It wasn't expensive, but he basically gave me the best. Gave me a web designer. He gave me lots of great advice. I was lucky in my shop in that my landlord in Montreal for 24 years owns 3 million square feet of property here in Florida. So when he found out I was moving, he just said, call my agent in Fort Lauderdale and he'll set you up. And I've been in his industrial park for 20 years. 3 different places. I started off with 2,000 square feet and now we have 5. But it was great to have, I still have that relationship with him, now with his grandchildren because he passed away. But having that relationship was great. Meeting Canadians down here is always very important to me, having that cultural tie. But the biggest shocker was the culture. I really thought the cultures would be the same. Okay, English is English. A person says foyer instead of foyer, not the end of the world. But but the culture is very, very, very different. At the same time, people are people. So I was lucky in that I live on the ocean in Fort Lauderdale. In the area where I live, we have our synagogue right across the street. I right away met several hundred people. 2 of them had just bought 3-bedroom condos, like a block from me. And I instantaneously had $200,000 worth of work. And I didn't have any employees yet. So things started rolling from there. And then I developed the website. I've done a lot of extensive advertising on House, which is a very, very dynamic design web page. We've actually won Best of House every year since 2013.
I have questions for that as well. I have questions for that too.
Yeah. I have 85 reviews on there now. Now, getting reviews also in America was very different than I didn't need the reviews in Canada because everybody was word of mouth. But here, if you do a job in Westfield Country Club, the neighbors don't know each other, So you had to really. So the house was very good for me but I had to beg people to give reviews. Mm-hmm. I even, after about 1 year, I sent an email flyer to everybody, and I said, I will give $18 to Children's Cancer for anybody who posts a link to House. And thank God, about 40 people posted it, and I was more than glad to give the $800 to charity. And that was a big boon because here in Florida, in particular, I don't know what it's like in the rest of the United States because I haven't lived there, but in Florida, it's a lot of people. They're fly-by-nighters. They open shops, they close shops. There's a lot of great shops here, no, for sure, but there's a lot of fly-by-night people. Even the people who moved here are very often transient. You don't find them here for many, many, many years. So that the reliability, when they went to my house site and found the reviews, and I now have over 90 reviews, that was like almost a guarantee of getting a job.
We also dived a little more deep on marketing topics as well, but let me ask, the technological infrastructure that you really like to use could be any type of design tools or anything that project management tools or anything like that. What are the tools that you use for yourself?
Okay, my main tool is my showroom, which is packed with samples, very well organized. I'm always on top of all my vendors to get me the latest and the best. And that is probably one of my most important tools. The design process, I do have a program called KCD, which is an excellent design program. I don't have any CNC equipment. I'm old school. We have sliders. I have a beautiful edge bander and double line boring machines, but We are still working one job, or we might have 5 jobs on the floor at any one time, but they're all individual. So
That's a
I'm
big
not
number,
cutting.
by the way. That's a real
Okay?
big number to handle. Yeah, it's a great number to
Yeah,
work with. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I'm working very often with designers. So very often the designers are bringing me the designs, but I also have some smaller designers that come to me. Not only they come with the design, but they come to me for the advice as well. So they find things in my showroom, or the client sees something in the showroom like the designer didn't even know about, because I stay on top of that. And there, my sales ability and my friendliness and my openness is really one of my most important tools. Anybody can go onto a design program and do a kitchen in 3D. Now, it's true today, and I'm not into that because I just haven't learned it. There's AI, there's 3D glasses. I don't even print my designs in full color. None of my clients really care. They see a beautiful 3D design. It's a step ahead of many people who are just doing a hand sketch. But the truth is, I have had a couple of very, very wealthy clients that said, "Nope, your design's very nice. I want full rendering." And then I deal with a company called 3D down here that does my rendering. So it costs me $500 to have a kitchen. Very often the designer posts it on Instagram before we even build it. And people think it's a kitchen. It's a built kitchen. You know, I don't even know if your screen back there is a real kitchen or not. Maybe it's just a Photoshop. So KCD does. If I spent like many more months on KCD, I could do the same type of thing with full color, with lighting and shading and stuff through the window. I've never had to do it, and I have always been a strong believer in keep it simple, stupid. I don't like to spend time on things that I know is not going to net a real profit for me. And again, because I'm older, I'm more old school. I tend to stick to what's more traditional. I am looking into retiring fairly soon, and there are guys who have worked in my shop that said, "You're using KCD, like I'm used to cabinet vision." I say, "Great, but this program cost me $800 30 years ago, and cabinet vision is $10,000 a year just for the maintenance, you know?"
Well, look at the saving over there.
Right, right. So, but my most important tool is my mind and my openness. That's not a physical tool. It's an emotional tool.
I think it's just like you said, whatever we are really comfortable to use, that's going to be the best tool for us. There are a lot of different tools here and over there. You're just using these tools to create for a purpose. The purpose is to offer your creativity to your clients. That's the main thing. And I think I absolutely agree with you over there when you say instead of spending thousands of money on one side and sticking with the program and software that you have is always the best approach to how to create your own programs and tools in place. So another thing with that is also, Harold, I would like to ask you, once we create beautiful designs, but at the same time, functionality needs to meet with these beautiful styles. How do you make sure that your designs both brings your clients the style and functionality at the same time?
Well, one of the ways is by keeping up with the trends, and that I do get all the trade magazines. I get all the woodworking magazines that come to us in the trade. I've been in many shops, and these guys never heard of any of these things. You know, I'm on WoodWeb, which is a woodworking forum. I go there on there every day just to see what's doing, offer advice, get advice. So watching the trends is a very important part. But functionality, I'm just used to. I have some experience in fine arts from university, and I have besides trying to create things that are beautiful, which sometimes I do leave to the designers. If a designer really has, if the client's looking for a super design more than functionality, which is not unusual, I let them take the reins and I build what they want. But I'm also, especially in my experience in Canada, not as much here, but in Canada, almost 100% of my kitchens were kosher kitchens. So kosher kitchen has 2 sinks, 2 dishwashers, 2 microwaves, sometimes a third oven, 2 ovens. There's only 1 fridge and a freezer because if it's cold, it's not a problem in terms of kosher. But if there's anything hot, it has to be 2 of everything, 2 sets of cutlery, and sometimes 3 sets if you have Passover dishes. So so I've had to learn and I myself am Orthodox, so I know what's required in a kitchen, and that same trend follows through for bedrooms or for other types of cabinetry. I'm looking at functionality, I'm looking at space saving, I'm looking at using the best hardware. At the same time, I want to don't want to make a plain looking thing. I add some styling into it. Sometimes it's mine, sometimes it's designers. Depends, and sometimes I even collaborate with the client. We just finished an 8,000 square foot home in Boca, and the client came in and had all her own visions. She had everything just in hand sketches, nothing fancy. But I just right away sat down with her and said, okay, let's look them over. And I said, I think this would be better. She said, oh, that's a great idea. I think maybe we should change that to that. That's a great idea. Then I put it on my computer. I did the computerized drawings because the builders need scale drawings, right? But I go with the flow in terms of the design. And again, going to the shows, knowing what's popular is a very, very important aspect of it.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing these golden nuggets with us. Since you're talking about working with builders, they have specific needs. And I think that's a great place to ask you, what's your actual process for working with these builders, remodelers, contractors, or even maybe homeowners to ensure their projects run really smoothly and the cabinets fits perfectly? What do you think?
Well, in the case of new construction, which I do a lot of, a lot of big homes in Boca, they're starting from scratch. So at that point, the builder comes to me with he'll email me the drawings. I've got a widescreen printer, so I can print it out right away. I don't have to run to FedEx, and I get the widescreen. And now I can basically work on a price for him based on linear foot, the type of material, and the height of the cabinets. At that point, we then usually, of course, the architect's drawings have your typical triangle of the sink on the island, the fridge over there. That doesn't always work well. Sometimes nowadays, especially in these bigger homes, some of them are show homes, and people are socialites and they have massive parties. They don't even cook. They have a 60-inch gas range. They never use it. The only time it's used, which is when they're having social parties, and then they're bringing a catering company to do the cooking in the kitchen. So I work with the builders on what their budget is, and we're doing very often the kitchen, usually a very large kitchen. We're doing the bathrooms, all the vanities. What's most important for them is to get those drawings as fast as possible, number one. With a trusted builder that I've been working with for a few years, I don't ask them for a deposit right away on the drawings. I can do the drawings relatively quickly. And then we go to the site and I meet him at the site, or I'll meet his project manager and the plumber and the electrician. Because the worst thing to do is to start installing a vanity and the lighting over the vanity is not in the center of the sink because I didn't give him that instructions. Or there's a pull-out drawer in the vanity for an iPad and he didn't know that. And now he's got to open up the walls and run cabling into the back of the cabinet to get me an outlet inside the drawer. LED lighting today is very, very popular. It's all low voltage and there's transformers. Does the customer want a dimmer or they just want to open and close it? If everything's all wired in and the transformer is up near the ceiling somewhere in the top of a cabinet, no problem. If they decide they want to do it, if they decide after they move in, that's light's too strong, I want to be able to come down in the evening and just be able to walk around in a bit of a dark room, but just have some lighting, then they'll switch out the transformer and put a dimmable. But I'd like to do those things in advance because, first of all, then I'm transferring out the dimmer and I'm not charging them the extra amount for the dimmable one. So working with the trades, besides the builder very often doesn't care. The builder's not even on site. He's got a project manager. That project manager has electricians, plumbers. They often do come to me when the slabs are already down. And then I have to work with where they did the floor, or where they brought the pipes up through the floor, or they have to move them. And that sometimes happens also. Builders aren't always aware either. And I sometimes come in and say, well, wait a minute, that island's going to be 60 inches from the stove. And it's only supposed to be 48. Even if you want to go to 50, 52, but 6 feet, it's too far. So then okay, thank you for telling me. If I didn't tell them and they put a finished floor in there with beautiful tile, and then I come and say, oh, I didn't notice that. they'll be angry at me, right? So if I tell them before, so they'll break open the floor again. It'll cost them money for the change order, but at least I'm telling them in advance. So again, communication, communication with all the trades. And it still happens that I go to do an installation and the plumber put the pipes smack on the middle of the wall of the sink. And he has to come in and open up the wall and move it over 6 inches. It still happens. They themselves are not always careful.
Right.
The other area as well that's very important, besides lighting, plumbing, electrical, is electrical for appliances. I spent a lot of time I go to the appliance. There used to be appliance, there were meetings of the NKBA at Sub-Zero's showroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept begging them, listen, it's really nice for us designers to get together, for us cabinet makers to get together. You're serving a lunch. I can't eat it. It's not kosher, but I'm there. We do networking. I say, what about, we install our own cabinets. What about for installation? You're selling the appliances, but you're leaving it to us to know everything. We just installed a Mealy coffee machine, and I saw on the specs, it's a coffee machine that has to be on tracks that rolls in and out. They're not all like that. The warming drawers are often needing a little more than 24 inches with the plug in the back if you don't put the plug in the upper left-hand corner. Microwaves, drawers, the same thing. It's got to be the left-hand corner. So when I meet with the trades, I say, look, you've got to have that outlet there. Don't play around with me. Don't put it 6 inches that way and 6 inches that way. It's got to be exactly in that location. And again, it's just pre-communication. And that really solves a lot of problems after.
This is great to learn because just like Harold shared here, the first thing that you need to know is communication is a big part of your business. So if you think that you're really good at what you're doing, your communication should follow that actual thing as well.
Yeah.
And Harold, you also talk about a very interesting thing that you were bringing all these magazines to be able to understand the trends and everything. What trends that you're seeing in the custom cabinetry that we should pay attention to?
Well, what I'm finding most down here, which I didn't have in Canada, is because I do live in South Florida, so we're attached to Miami. When I first moved here, for instance, West Palm, that area was still heavy crown moldings, lots of fluting, lots of solid wood. In South Florida now, because I'm not following the trends across the nation, in the Midwest, they still want face frame doors. We only do frameless, and we don't use solid wood at all. We're working with either exotic veneers or just veneers, or a lot of the textured laminate materials, the wood grains, the high gloss, the super mats. So that's the most popular now down in South Florida. Certainly the Mia Puccini look, the European styling. I'm used to that styling also from Canada, because Canada is much more attached to Europe in terms of its styling. America has always been behind the times, except for Miami, the West Coast, and the East Coast. But the rest of the country, if you show them, particle board, no, I won't. It's IKEA. I don't want it. And then you explain to them that MDF and particle board with a veneer on it stays flat. Whereas if you want plywood, I'll give you a written guarantee it's going to work. They don't understand. So the trends here in South Florida are still very, very modern, very, very upbeat. We're doing a lot of high glosses. Now what's very, very popular is the non-bacterial super mats, which don't show fingerprints. So it looks really like a painted surface, but it's got the durability of a laminate. You can wash it, with anything you want, but you can't damage it. Very, very resistant to scratches. The newest materials like Phoenix, which actually, if you get a scratch in it, you can put a warm towel on it and an iron, and the scratch comes right out. So now, not everybody wants to pay for that. That's a little more expensive material, but I'm showing it. I always show those things. So and again, I don't have a wide base. My showroom is just one kitchen. I don't have the room. Like Allied has 3 floors, right? And that's because they're buying their cabinets from 100 different distributors across America. I'm manufacturing everything to order, so I couldn't do that. But certainly in my area, for the builders, again, they're looking for European styling without the expensive costs of stained or clear lacquered veneers. What they're looking for, the pre-finished materials that look like wood. A lot of white oak now is very popular, but again, it's white oak a laminate on MDF from Brazil, and it looks stunning. You know,
Do you still believe that the word European creates a little bit of luxury perception in the consumer? When you say
yes, yes.
European, do you think, oh, it's going to be a luxury thing, or what do you think when the word European?
I think it depends on the client. It depends on the educational level of the client and on the sophistication of the client. I have many clients down here in South Florida that are snowbirds. Some of them are European. There could be someone from Germany or France that's buying a property on Brickell, and they go back. They don't want the cabinetry that's there. You know, it's either older, maybe it's an older apartment. Then they get in touch with me and say what they want. So when they say, what's the interiors? Well, if it's a European, I'll tell them right away, you have a choice. It's either a pre-finished maple interior or it is a textured linen material in a laminate. They go for the laminate right away. Because in Europe, they stopped using plywood after World War II. There were no more trees left, right? They're much more ecological. If you tell your average American that you're using melamine inside, even if you call it high density laminate, don't call it a melamine, but it is, right? They won't buy it. So each different groups feel different way, but certainly when we don't do like high rises because we don't have the volume, we can't do the volume of that. It would take us a year to install a 30-story building. But those 30-story buildings are ordering from Scavallini, they're ordering from Pogenpo, probably not Pogenpo, that's probably too expensive. But they're buying from European companies because if a person's paying $1.5 million for a two-bedroom condo, when they open up that door, they want to see on the hinge Scavallini, Pogenpo. They want to see a European name. I don't have my name on my hinges, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So there's still the perception for sure. There are still Scavallini's here, Mia Puccini's here. There's a lot of Italian import companies that are here. Their high glosses are beyond beautiful and very cheap because they've been set up for that. Here in Florida, to get a high gloss kitchen, the very few finishers here will want to spray it. First of all, you got the humidity, the temperature changes, and they're just not used to it. A polyester high gloss finish. I get those from Canada. If I need it. And most people don't want to spend that kind of money anyway, unless again it's a famous football player or actor and they're buying a $25 million home. Those aren't my clients. So I'm not worried about that.
Thank you so much for sharing this because some of in our podcast, they're mentioning, and also it could be either any kind of a showroom that we are working at residential projects. They are trying to do those kind of things. I believe the information that you shared will be an eye opener for these people. And thank you so much for this one.
Like a lot of for instance, a lot of the big condos. So when those kitchens are coming from Europe, there's 300 kitchens. They're all, except for different size apartments, they're all almost identical. The grains on the drawers are not necessarily matched because they know darn well that their installers are going to be dropping things here and there, and they don't want to replace a whole pantry just because of one stupid drawer front, right? We build everything book matched. Okay, when my guys drop a drawer, they have to, they cry.
Yeah, got it.
They have to change the whole drawer front because you can't match the grain again. So, but that's the difference in custom and so it's and they do their drawers only 19 inches because they don't know how much plumbing is in the back. Ours is a full 21 or 22. So there's advantages to the European. It's gorgeous looking, but not necessarily the finest quality, as opposed to what we can do, and we can do it faster, but not 300 of them.
Got that. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing that again. I'm sure our listeners are enjoying this conversation just like I do. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and everything.
My pleasure.
I would like to bring the conversation to marketing side of things, finding new clients and customers and your ideal people. For these decades in the field, I'm sure that you have different strategies over the years. And what's the best thing that is really working for you to meet new people and bring new revenue to your business today?
Word of mouth, referrals. Referrals are the most important for me. Again, I'm dealing with a very high-end customer. One friend tells another. There are some condos in South Florida, in Miami Beach, that we've done 20 kitchens in one building. Let's say there's 16 floors, 8 apartments per floor, but they all tell each other. Which is not that different from Montreal, except there it was a brother and a sister and a cousin and an uncle, and sometimes it's that also, by the way, because a lot of these people from New York, they buy in the same buildings, and they have their own synagogue in the building, they have a kosher restaurant in the building,
Right.
and it's their own. You're sort of taking New York and bringing it down to Miami. They're living the similar life. Now I have not had the time being a one person owner, and not having the money to hire salesmen. And most salesmen don't know what the heck they're talking about anyway. They don't know what I know. So I have not had the time to develop a large enough builder clientele. I've always been busy. As a matter of fact, I'm negotiating now for someone for my business, and he's a younger man. And I told him, like he said, like, what about, how do you keep getting your orders? And I said, I keep getting them from God upstairs. He just sends me people and clients, and I have my house site.
Let's talk about house. That's
Yeah.
very interesting because you're just saying God is sending me, but I see a great reputation on house. How did you evolve during the years, and did you just specifically ask people to go there and give you a review on house? What was your strategy right there to build this great profile over there?
Well, house, when it first started, I think it was around 2013, maybe a little bit earlier, was a before that I was with Angie's List. Okay. So Angie's List was kind of like, they would have 15 people at their house at the same time, all taking measurements. Half the trucks outside were broken down. Half the people didn't have tape measures. And they were looking for your 10 by 12 kitchen for $2,400 and throw in the dishwasher, you know. And I realized very, very quickly that's not who I'm not going to make Chinese cabinets. You can do that, but I can't make custom like that. So I didn't bother with them very long. When House started up, they were a much, much higher end. The average consumer did not know about them. It was mostly the more affluent client that knew about House. At that time, they were not offering products. They were just offering services. So they had landscapers, they had architects. The investment at first was free. They gave you a platform to develop your own website, which you could do in minutes. You didn't have to hire a web designer. All you had to do is upload your pictures, put in your descriptions, put in keywords so that it would keep repeating itself over and over again like a spider, which is what the internet is. So if I had a client, she didn't end up being a client, but a client in Dallas that was looking for white shaker kitchen. She typed in white shaker on Google, and my white shaker kitchen on House showed up because, again, everything's connected, right? Of course, I wasn't going to go to Dallas and do a kitchen for her. And I told her, go to the Cabinet Makers Association that I'm a member of, and you'll find a great cabinet maker there. So I started with them. I developed a nice site. I really kind of stopped using my own website very much because every time I needed to load pictures, it was costing me a fortune for the web guy. They think they're like wizards, and it's like they're charging you a fortune to load pictures. So I was able to load my own picture from my iPhone right away when the job was finished. And then I was able to ask for reviews, which a website doesn't really give you that function. And House does have a function where there's a review me button. So when people go to House and you finish the job for them, you say, I'd be really grateful if you can review me. They even have a form. So you take their form and you can send it out to the last 10 people you did kitchens for. They all get the same form, and they can put their things, and they can add pictures if they want. So that was and I also met a lot of my builders that way. Sites like LinkedIn, they're for accountants, they're for SEO people. B&I is the same type of a thing. B&I, you have a real estate lawyer, you have a personal injury lawyer, maybe one designer, and she already has her own cabinet maker, so she's not going to give you the work. And a computer geek guy who's charging everybody $75 an hour, and he's running from from house to house in their personal homes, and that's how he's making his living. But otherwise, BNI is not for someone in the design industry. I didn't find that LinkedIn is. I tried connecting with builders over LinkedIn. I never got a response, but I get 100 emails every day trying to sell me insurance and trying to sell me SEO, right? Or new websites. So House was very good for that. Then they started, and then I became a paying member because they were getting so many shops. So became a paying member, and you pay per zone. So I paid for Miami, which was all of Miami-Dade, and then afterwards I started paying for Boca. So those two zones cost me about $2,500 a month. I get calls from them, and the truth is, the $2,500 a month times 12 months. If I do one $40,000 kitchen, it's paid for the ad for the whole year.
That just compensates everything.
It compensates everything. Yeah, and again, you're out there. You're getting the awards, right? So the awards are on Google right away. If you type in more aspects on cabinetry, you see 100 awards from House, and they're worth something because people see the reliability of it. And then they started selling products. And I've actually bought things. I've bought lamps on House, much like Wayfair and a lot of these home decorator sites. I found when they started to do that, they were not devoting as much time to the trades who really got them going. I still have paid for my advertising with them. It doesn't bring in what it used to. First of all, even though on my site it has $4 signs, they give you like dollar signs to tell you how expensive you are. I still get calls from people in Coral Gables, which is 50 miles from here, that they bought a new fridge. It's 2 inches too tall. Can I come and take down the cabinet above it, make it smaller, and they don't want to pay more than $200. I say, I won't even drive to Coral Gables for $200, right? So you still get those people, but there still are some quality people on there. It doesn't work for everybody, and it doesn't work in every location. I've learned on WoodWeb, because there's so many cabinet makers on WoodWeb on a regular basis. So if you type in, do you use House? You'll get 10 guys that say, I love it. You'll get 20 guys that say, waste of money. And then if you look at where they live, well, if you're in Little Rock, Arkansas, what do you need a house for? You can drive from one end of Little Rock to the other. Same thing in Montreal. Montreal's a big city, but it's not like New York. It's an island.
Exactly. I definitely agree. Some strategies work with some specific regions. You also said you did in Boca and even another location that you mentioned.
Boca and Miami-Dade, because Miami Beach was a very, very big market.
So picking your target location is super important. Just like Harold mentioned, finding a way like House, necessarily sometimes people cannot really find any leads from there. You should really follow different ways. Maybe you should focus more on paid ads or social media, or maybe SEO, or maybe you should build a new website and go from there. There are different ways, but if you find a way that is really working, that's really important for you. Just like Harold said, House right now is playing a real big role. But again, this is a pretty identical example of how should you really run your marketing. Once you find something that is really working for you, just stick with it. And this is a great example. Thank you so much, Harold. We are wrapping up. Wow, look at the conversation. It's almost an hour. Harold, before you go, I just wanted to ask you this question. There are a couple of people, they might have some follow-up questions. Maybe they have something to ask you since you have all this experience in the field. What is the best way? Is that your website should be mentioned, or is that any other way, that in a phone?
So if someone wants to reach me, they can reach me through my email. Or if they're in the immediate area, if my cell phone. I don't want to end up with 1,000 calls a week on my cell phone. I won't be able to run my business. But certainly, even on House, by the way, there are many people that type up saying, where did that chair come from? And I'll answer, I'm not the designer on the job. I just did the kitchen. You're looking at the dining room table, and I didn't build it. And well, what color? Where did the floor come from? Because they think I did the whole job, which is fine, But I'll take the time to answer them, because if you don't answer people, then you don't look professional. And also, God put me on this earth to be helpful. So I'm certainly no problem being helpful. And the person that you're helpful with, who may not give you the business, when they now buy their new house, they remember. that you were kind to them and that you did them a favor.
Right. That was seriously a great conversation, Harold. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. I'm sure the answers that you give us today will really help other people to learn. Thank you so much, folks. Every time that I host like this kind of important, really big pioneers in our show, that's the same feeling that I have. I'm sure that you enjoyed this episode just like I did today. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was another episode of Remodel Success Podcast. We're going to see you next time. Goodbye.
If you would like to generate more leads, please visit rtamarketing.com to get a copy of the book, Remodel Your Digital Marketing, an integrated online marketing guide for kitchen and bath remodelers. This has been another episode of the Remodeler Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.